But as you may well know, the House of Representatives adjourns today. The Senate goes on its summer recess next Friday. So what legislative priorities on the table will actually be put to the test as the country's lawmakers go home to their constituents? Institutional Investors' #1 ranked Washington research analyst for 6 straight years joins us now. Tom Gallagher, he's head of policy research at ISI Group in Washington. Tom, there was so much talk about health care reform and the push to get it done before we head to recess. It looks like that's not going to happen.
Oh, yeah, clearly it's not. They had hoped for floor passage in the House, committee passage in the Senate. They're going to fall short of that. But I do think that they regained a little momentum on that issue in just the last few days, with basically in each chamber a move from the more liberal proposals toward the center in the House committee and in the Senate Finance Committee, so that they've regained a little bit of momentum. And I think that's what they'll be testing during the August recess. It's it's vacation time. You'd think Congress is going to take it easy, but it's actually going to be a very active political time for members of Congress.
Now, you point out in this morning's research note that it has been a tough month for President Obama. The health care reform really stalling, one of the reasons why it's been a tough month for him. The Economist going so far as to point out that Obama's no more popular than George Bush or Richard Nixon at the same stage in their presidencies. Is this recess happening at what could be actually an opportune time for President Obama in terms of having to clean house a little bit himself?
Well, definitely it does. There are really two themes here. I mean, there's the issue-specific theme of health care and how they're going to address that. But then there's the broader political backdrop, how they're going to try to arrest the decline in Obama's standing. It's fallen by almost a point a day over the last 10 days. But, the NBC News political team made an interesting point about their survey. It suggests, that Obama may be at what a stock market technician might say as a support level. That is, his overall approval rating is exactly where his vote share was last November, and his standing among independents and Republicans is where it was in exit polls. So in other words, we're kind of back to the campaign. The support he's lost so far is the support he gained after the election. If he falls through this support level, then he's going to be losing people who actually voted for him. So I think it'll be interesting to see if it falls through that. But I don't think the White House will take chances with that. I think they'll take some steps to try to bolster his standing beyond just talking about the health care issue.
Now, this morning we got a better than expected GDP number, though we still saw a pullback in terms of economic growth. It was not as bad as some expected. Does this change the outlook for whether or not there may be a second stimulus package?
Well, I think it would make that less likely, right? Even though you have a decline in real GDP, the pace of the decline is slowing pretty dramatically. So I think it makes it less likely that you get a second stimulus bill. But a decision on that was always a few months away anyway. I think what it does do is it gives the White House an opening to try to address one of the sources of weakness in Obama's standing, and that is growing doubts about the economy and about the stimulus package. In fact, really more people thinking it's a bad idea than a good idea, according to most polls now. So they can. It's still tough to sell a negative number, but the pace of decline has improved so much that I think they'll really try to use that to try to make people feel better about the economy. And after all, that's really probably the most important thing that determines the president's approval rating.
Well, the White House out this morning, congressional staff also trying to find a way to keep that so-called cash for clunkers program alive. There was some fear that it was stalling, that the program wasn't going to be able to survive, that it was maybe running out of cash. Christine Romer of the White House on Bloomberg earlier today said, no, it's moving full steam ahead. It's not shutting down. What's the reality there in terms of funding for this program and whether or not it's surviving?
I'm not sure I know the reality, to be honest, Margaret. I mean, the news just broke last night, but it sounds as though they've blown through most of the $1 billion that was appropriated for this in just 1 week. So it tells you how popular the program is. There was some uncertainty about whether or not they were terminating the program. They may be extending it, but they have to find a way to fund it past the $1 billion. And so I think it's going to be very hard to do before Congress leaves on recess. So the only way they can, maybe they'd have to do something controversial like use the TARP money. The Wall Street Journal floated that idea this morning. I think that'd be pretty controversial, but I wouldn't rule anything out. I think there will be more money for the cash for clunkers, but it's not going to come from Congress prior to the recess.
All right. Thanks so much, Tom Gallagher of ISI Group. Thanks for making sense of that for us.